It's kind of amazing how much information hits us daily, right? But actually understanding the big picture, well, that usually takes a bit more effort. And that's what we do here. You give us the source material and we try to pull out the really key insights for you.
Exactly. Think of it like getting the essential takeaways on some complex stuff.
Yeah.
And today we're looking at something pretty fundamental, how media and good governance connect.
Yeah. The source we're digging into is this document called mediaandgoodgovernance.pdf.
Right.
And it basically maps out all these different ways the media influences how society is, run.
So our mission really is to unpack that.
Yeah.
We want to show you the really critical role media plays in making sure governments are, open about what they do, accountable to people, and actually listen.
Consider this your shortcut to getting your head around these ideas.
Precisely.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The document kicks off talking about transparency and accountability. It calls the media a watchdog. What's really behind that term?
Well, it's about the media's job as an observer, right, as a reporter. When they dig into things like corruption or maybe inefficiencies or what the document calls unethical practices and bring that stuff out into the open, they're basically performing a public service, showing things that might otherwise just stay hidden.
And just bringing it to light, that exposure that has real effects, doesn't it? It's not just, oh, that's interesting. It changes things.
Absolutely. The document really emphasizes that this transparency is like the foundation for accountability.
Yeah, okay.
When leaders know their actions could end up on the front page or, debated online, there's a much stronger incentive to act ethically.
Right. That makes sense. And these unethical practices the source mentions, that could be quite a range of things, I suppose.
Yeah, it could cover anything from, say, mismanaging funds to abusing the power they've been given, basically actions that break public trust.
Okay. Then the document moves on to how media helps with informed decision-making and getting citizens involved. Seems pretty vital for democracy.
Oh, completely foundational. I mean, think about it. How can democracy work if people don't know what's going on?
Right.
The media is like the main channel for information about policies, about reforms, about big national issues.
Yeah.
It gives people the basic info they need to form an opinion.
So it's not just headlines, it's the context, the background people need to actually, think things through and participate properly.
Exactly. And the document points out that when citizens are informed, they can participate better in discussions, they can push back on their representatives, and crucially, make better choices when they vote. Plus, media platforms themselves, TV, radio, online forums, they become spaces for debate.
Getting people involved in the actual process.
Yeah, actively drawing them into democratic life.
Interesting. Next, the document talks about media acting as a bridge. A two-way street, it says, between the government and the public. Not just top-down info.
That's a really good way to put it, a two-way conduit. So, yeah, the government uses media to tell people about policies, what they've achieved maybe. But just as important, media channels public opinion, concerns, feedback back to the government.
And that back and forth, that dialogue, presumably builds trust. It shows the government isn't just talking at people, but maybe listening too.
Definitely. The source explicitly links this communication, this two-way flow, to building trust and cooperation.
Right.
When people feel heard and feel like they know what's happening, it just strengthens that relationship, makes for better governance overall.
Okay, shifting focus a bit, the document looks at the rule of law and human rights. Media as a guardian almost.
Yeah, and what's really powerful here is the media's ability to shine a light on injustice, on inequality. When it reports on what the document calls abuse of power, it puts pressure on authorities to actually uphold the law and make sure it applies fairly to everyone.
So it's about more than just reporting crimes. It's about defending the system of law itself.
Precisely. And the document also highlights how focusing on human rights issues or the needs of groups who are often ignored.
Marginalized communities, yeah.
Right. That kind of coverage can really force governments to act, to address those fundamental problems, which you need for a fair society.
Then the scope widens again. The document talks about promoting social awareness and, interestingly, global connectivity.
It does broaden out, yeah. On social awareness, media is crucial for educating people about, all sorts of things: health, education, the environment, social justice issues. If the public understands these things better, they're better equipped to actually tackle them.
And the global connection, how does that fit in? Learning from others.
Exactly. Global media means we can see how things are done elsewhere, share ideas, share what the document calls best governance practices.
Right.
Seeing what works in other countries can be a real push for governments to look at their own systems and maybe, improve things, meet international standards.
Okay, next up, development and strengthening democracy. These feel like core goals of good governance itself.
They really are. And the media plays a big part in highlighting development challenges. Things like poverty, lack of jobs, poor infrastructure.
So bringing problems to light so they get addressed.
Pretty much. By making these issues part of the public conversation, it encourages governments to actually prioritize them, to put resources where they're needed most.
And for democracy itself, how does media strengthen it, according to this source?
Well, the document is clear. A free and independent media is like a basic pillar of democracy.
Right.
It protects fundamental rights like free speech, freedom of the press. You absolutely need those for a healthy democracy, for people to hold leaders accountable.
The document also mentions social accountability. How does media help citizens hold governments to their word?
It connects back to a few things, really. Investigative reporting, providing those platforms for discussion we talked about, just keeping a steady eye on things. It all encourages people to demand that officials actually follow through on promises and answer for what they do.
So creating a sort of culture where leaders expect to be scrutinized.
Exactly. And tied to that is checking abuses of power. That's a vital safeguard. By reporting when authority is misused, when someone oversteps, the media acts as a check and balance. It keeps leaders accountable and, hopefully, discourages any moves towards what the source calls authoritarianism.
Two more big areas the document touches on: influencing public opinion and fighting corruption. Both huge.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, through editorials, opinion pieces, even just how news is framed, the media shapes how people think about governance issues.
Right.
And when the public is informed and engaged, they can push for policy changes, make sure the government stays responsive.
And corruption, the media's role there seems very direct, especially with investigations.
Oh, absolutely. Investigative journalism is critical for digging up corruption in government or public bodies. And just the threat of being exposed, as the document points out, can be a pretty powerful deterrent. It pushes towards more ethical behavior.
Now, it's not all positive. The document does acknowledge the challenges the media faces. It's complicated.
No, it's definitely not simple. The document mentions several big ones. Political bias is a major concern.
Where outlets lean one way or another.
Right, which can lead to skewed reporting, maybe leaving things out. And then there's the huge issue today of misinformation.
Fake news, yeah. That seems like it could completely undermine everything else.
It really can. The document uses the term misinformation, and its spread can seriously mislead people, damage governance by distorting debates, and just erode trust in actual reliable news.
What else?
Well, in some places, outright censorship is a problem, obviously limiting what the media can do. And finally, the influence of commercial interests. Sometimes the need to make money might clash with the duty to serve the public interest.
So we've talked about all these different roles and challenges, but they're all connected, aren't they? It forms a complex picture.
That's a great way to sum it up. Yes, they're all interconnected. Transparency helps accountability, informs citizens, strengthens democracy, checking power prevents corruption. It all feeds into that main goal of good governance.
Right.
A healthy media environment is really essential for a healthy society, as the source lays out.
So the big takeaway here really seems to be that media isn't just a passive observer of governance. It's an active player, shaping it through transparency, accountability, getting citizens involved.
Exactly. It's got this incredibly varied role, massive potential for positive impact, but it also needs, responsibility from the media itself and from us too, as people who consume the news.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe for you, the listener. Thinking about all these different ways media influences things, what role do you see yourself playing? How can you help make sure the media landscape actually helps rather than hinders good governance? Something to chew on after this deep dive.